Sony has a long history with action-adventure titles. Some of the best created found their homes on the PlayStation. The PS4 era catapulted Sony's reputation for action-adventure into the stratosphere, and that trend has continued into the PS5. Now, sure, some of the games on this rundown were originally PS4 titles, and whether that speaks to a strength in Sony's prior generation or a weakness on current gen, that's up to you. Regardless, the games here blend the stately exploration and storytelling of adventure alongside refined, skillful combat found in action, so it'd be remiss to exclude them here. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Expectation was moderate following Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown's announcement, perhaps given the mediocrity of Assassin's Creed side-scrolling Chronicles games. But The Last Crown, in fact, will be remembered as a modern platforming masterpiece. Deep combat, enthralling, satisfying platforming, and time manipulation powers to unleash upon a host of enemies render this action-adventure game an exhilarating must-play. The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. This PS5 refresh of Naughty Dog's exceptional sequel features the same 40-hour campaign, but enhanced with a host of graphical improvements, including optional 4K output. Whether you love or hate the story, it's hard to argue this remaster isn't a worthy package. New stuff like Lost Levels, Guitar Free Play, Speedrun Mode, Enhanced Photo Mode means The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered is a fantastic game. Stellar Blade. Coming at a time when Sony's first-party studios are on hiatus, pressure mounted on Stellar Blade to deliver an experience worthy of the PS5 mantle. And despite a handful of issues, Korean developer Shift Up's first foray is exceptional, delivering a blend of stylish hack-and-slash combat and awe-striking world design. The comparisons to Sekiro: Shadows Never Die are apt, but Stellar Blade make their shared dodge, parry, swordplay more accessible than From Software's samurai opus, thus propelling Stellar Blade to one of the best-selling games released this year. Sea of Thieves. Swashbuckling pirate adventure Sea of Thieves, a long-standing Microsoft exclusive, has crossed the ocean to PS5, and it's now one of the best ways to waste away the hours with your mates on Sony's home console. Quests are aplenty, including themed adventures based on Pirates of the Caribbean and Monkey Island. But more tangible joy in living the pirate's life is provided by rudderless exploration. The game's a sandbox, and at its best when you're making your own narratives across the seas. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. Drawing inspiration from Japanese filmmaker Akira Kurosawa's cinematic east-west blending aesthetic and the enigmatic auteurness of Shadows of the Colossus, Samurai Jin Sakai's mission to repel bloodthirsty invaders from Tsushima Island is portrayed with care and authenticity. Uniquely, its limb-slicing swordplay intersperses zen-like tranquility nicely, but it's the haptic feedback, quality of life improvements, faster frame rates, and 4K visuals that underline Ghost of Tsushima's director's cut as a comprehensive expansion of the PS4 action-adventure. System Shock. Pioneering 1994 classic System Shock has been remade for contemporary hardware, and it's a blast to play through despite coexisting a little too closely to its forebearer. Its controls and shooting mechanics bear much of the original's archaic charm, for instance, but it's undeniably an evocative experience overall, with an engaging story told non-linearly, and an overarching AI nemesis more unsettling today than it was 3 decades ago. Kaa Bridge of Spirits. Despite launching early on in the PS5's lifecycle, Spirit Guide Kaa's trek through sacred forests and enchanted mountains in Bridge of Spirits is still amongst the console's most gorgeous experiences, made all the more memorable via a flurry of characterful companions, the Rot, who help her solve interesting environmental puzzles while providing fluffy backup and fun combat encounters. As a debut game, developer Ember Lab have served up something remarkable, and if they've nailed a more satisfying story, then we'd be talking about Kaa Bridge of Spirits as an all-timer. God of War Ragnarok. Set a few years after the events of the 2018 reboot, Ragnarok sees Kratos team up once again with his son Atreus on a quest through the frozen realms of Midgard. This time, Kratos seems ever more forlorn, whilst Atreus stronger and more confident. Combat is as physical as ever, but the game's twisting, emotional story cements Ragnarok's place at the top of the PS5 pile. Like a Dragon Ishin. taking the fist-pulping gangsters out of Tokyo and transplanting them to the closing days of Japan's Edo period, Like a Dragon Ishin, a 2023 remake of a formerly Japan-only 2014 title, presents an intriguing take on the Yakuza formula. Fusing pistols and katanas freshens up the fighting, whilst a complex story repels any potential disengagement from the game's dearth of interesting side content. Not as essential as mainline like a Dragon games perhaps, but Ishin is heaps of fun and a worthy entry into the storied series. Toia. Developer Awaseb described Toia as a poetic coming-of-age story inspired by New Caledonia. Embarking on a voyage to rescue her father from a cruel tyrant, titular character Toia's soul-jumping ability grants her access to any animal or object so that she can explore the island as a bird, swim through the ocean as a fish, or take control of any inanimate object for creative puzzle solving. An overlooked hero of the PS5's game catalog, Toia deserves to be played by as many gamers as possible. Ghostwire Tokyo. Following a mysterious supernatural event, the ordinarily bustling streets of Shibuya are strangely deserted, and the street's emptiness allowed developer Tango Gameworks to hone in on all of Shibuya's real-life contemporary problems. This is a wonderfully realized setting, replete with traditional folklore and culture too. It's amongst Ghostwire Tokyo's most impressive features, which is much needed given the genericism of the game's mission design. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. A sequel that improves on every aspect of its predecessor except maybe the story, Star Wars Jedi Survivor sees Cal Kestis continue his struggles against the Galactic Empire. A neat addition from Respawn Entertainment was to include many of Cal's power-ups acquired in Fallen Order without the player having to earn them again. Plus, new abilities like airborne double dashes add elevation to traversing the game's well-designed semi-open levels. New lightsaber types and combat stances add depth to the game's fighting as well. If it wasn't for a barrel of technical issues at launch, Star Wars Jedi Survivor would have retained its hype much longer than it did. Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. It's from Software, but not as we've grown accustomed. Their long-established design principles are present in Armored Core 6, facets such as refined controls with swift responses to player input, challenging combat requiring player skill, and dynamic worlds filled with a prevailing sense of progression. But they've combined perfectly with the unique feel of mecha-based combat. Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon is a real treat for the senses, and an exceptional detour from FromSoft's usual Soulsborne game design. Trine 5, A Clockwork Conspiracy. Trine's fifth entry doesn't reinvent the wheel, instead it sticks closely to its pre-established playbook, but with a handful of subtle refinements. Its puzzles, for instance, are more complex, its progression more rewarding, its boss fights tougher and more memorable. Story again doesn't set the world alight, but Trine has always been a series built on vibe and atmosphere, and Trine 5, A Clockwork Conspiracy continues that trend nicely. Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Yet another sequel on this rundown that's hugely superior to its predecessor. A vaster New York metropolis, an altogether more exciting storyline, shiny, modern graphics, new power-ups, heartfelt characters, and the list goes on. It's not perfect, there are grievances, but Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is without a doubt one of the finest open-world action adventures on the PS5. The web-swinging just never gets old. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Story, gameplay, lore, and world-building are ever-present staples of From Software's titles. But with Elden Ring and its subsequent DLC Shadow of the Erdtree, FromSoft have outdone themselves. The switch to the open world proved to be a masterstroke, providing an unrivaled sense of freedom many other open-world games simply haven't been able to capture. Held aloft as one of the best games ever made, Elden Ring captures the imagination like no other prior Souls-like game has achieved. Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1. Pioneers of tactical espionage action are the first three 3D Metal Gear Solid games, and their recreation here for Master Collection Volume 1 alongside Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake is extremely faithful. But their authenticity presents glaring faults which have left a sour taste in the mouths of die-hard fans regardless of the handful of extras like master books and scripts. principal in the disappointment are the game's low resolutions and frame rates, which have been faultlessly duplicated. A huge missed opportunity for Konami to bring these games bang up to date. Still, these are iconic titles, and Volume 1 is the best way to play them on modern hardware if you haven't already. Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection. Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection bundles 2 PS4-era titles into one package for the PS5, and they are essential as any other PS5 action game on this rundown. Both Uncharted 4: A Thief's End and Uncharted The Lost Legacy receive visual upgrades in this collection, and they're presented in an unflappably smooth 60 FPS with non-existent load times and the DualSense's haptic feedback to boot. Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection is an easy recommendation. They're both towering titans of cinematic game design. Grand Theft Auto V. Yes, despite being over a decade old, players still flock to Grand Theft Auto V, and for good reason. Los Santos and its surrounding areas still harbor detail almost to an unprecedented level. The player characters are timeless, their voice acting superb. The chance to live the life of a seasoned criminal amidst paradise, still a joyous, whimsical thrill ride. Grand Theft Auto 6 has big shoes to fill when it lands sometime next year. The Last of Us Part 1. There are many who still debate the necessity for a remake to the first The Last of Us, but it's hard to argue against Naughty Dog's effort in bringing the best of the PS5's prowess to this rebuilt title. Visual overhauls are expected, but the game's fully integrated haptic controller support, improved controls, refined combat, accessibility options, and improved environmental storytelling ensure The Last of Us Part 1 stands tall as a paragon of emotional storytelling on modern hardware. No Man's Sky. There's no denying Hello Games absolutely love No Man's Sky. They've plowed countless passionate hours into making the game's sandbox function on a universal scale, and that passion seeps into every minute spent exploring the boundless reaches of outer space. Living a virtual life amongst the cosmos, scavenging, building, crafting, and trading in No Man's Sky is continually beautiful and surprising. There's a story here, but the appeal is felt in unbridled freedom. A Plague Tale: Requiem. Yet another sequel on this rundown that took all that was great about its predecessor and embellished it. An impressive story. Check. Improved action and stealth mechanics. Check. A boatload of rats, seemingly in the thousands, more than the prior game. I'll double check. A Plague Tale: Requiem is a fantastic follow-up which deals out everything that made the first one great, but in ludicrous quantities. It Takes Two. Arguably the best couch co-op game ever made, It Takes Two is a towering achievement for developer Hazelight Studios, who crammed tons of innovative ideas to far surpass their prior co-op game, A Way Out. Here, soon-to-be divorced couple May and Cody, following their transformation into dolls, must forego their differences to work together to reach their missing daughter. It's the perfect game to play with someone else, given the slew of clever mechanics unique to each of the characters. Control Ultimate Edition. Perhaps Remedy Entertainment's strangest game, Control plunges Jesse Faden into an oddball world rife with conspiratorial sci-fi and mystery. The goings-on inside the oldest house aren't 100% fathomable even after multiple playthroughs, but Remedy have a knack for creating such a sense of place that despite all the wacky things going on in the game's events, it always seems grounded. Of course, as you progress, you unlock ever more exciting upgrades for your firearm and increasingly powerful telekinetic powers. The dance between the two becomes ultra satisfying, ripping chunks of concrete out of the ground to hurl at your enemies before switching to neon explosive gun power never gets old. Watch Dogs Legion. Legion broke away from Watch Dogs' first two games in an attempt to bring something fresh. Some facets were sorely missed. The ability to control traffic signals, cause citywide outages, or tricking the police to attack a target of your choosing, for instance. However, its central mechanic to recruit almost any citizen to your cause deserves praise. Practically any NPC can possess the skills you need to crack the next story element. You just need to scan and find them, akin to panning for gold. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy features some fairly straightforward level design and basic combat, but these rudimentary facets only serve as foundations upon which top-notch writing, an excellent script, and fantastic character performances are then laid on. Guardians is perhaps amongst the most slept-on games on this rundown, maybe due to prior Marvel game Avengers being so lackluster, but there is a passionate fanbase out there for this one. If you've not done it yet, there's no better time than now. Guardians of the Galaxy rests alongside Spider-Man and Batman Arkham series as the best superhero titles of the modern era. Black Myth Wukong. Undeniable is the success Black Myth Wukong is currently enjoying. Fantastical environments, immersive graphics, ferocious combat, dense lore, complex characters. These elements point to Black Myth being a Souls-like title, but Chinese developer Game Science are pitching it as an action-adventure, with enough disparate elements from a raft of titles for Black Myth Wukong to exist as its own thing. Hogwarts Legacy. Budding wizards and witches rejoice, for Hogwarts Legacy is the Harry Potter RPG they've always dreamed of. Hogwarts Legacy captures the magic of the books and movies perfectly, not just in its wonderfully realized setting and gripping story, but in the wizarding power fantasy it provides via an engrossing combat system featuring a multitude of spells and combos to enamor even non-Harry Potter fans. Horizon Forbidden West. Aloy's sophomore adventure takes her to the West Coast, and whilst the serene, mist-imbued landscapes evoke a sense that this sequel is more of the same, it most certainly isn't. Defining Forbidden West is an expanded combat system underpinned by bigger, deadlier, and more foreboding machines, re-establishing the trepidation that's most certainly lost towards Zero Dawn's latter stages. Outer Wilds. Take a short hop into space and infinite possibilities will reveal themselves. For unlike other open-world games, Outer Wilds' micro-galaxy is 100% explorable from the off. Ostensibly a sci-fi puzzler, Outer Wilds culminates in one of the most thought-provoking finales in all of gaming. And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at Gaming Vault, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.